Hey, what's up everybody, this is me24, and this is part 2 of my review of the Eva Unit Mark 6. If you missed part 1, I'll put a link in the annotations here, but for part 2 here I'm going to start off with the poseability and then look at the weapons and accessories of this kit. As for the head on this guy, same sort of thing as with the other new Eva kits. You have the neck piece separate, and there's another ball joint here on the back of the head, so you can get the sort of bob back and forth there. This one does have a mouth that opens, so you have some sort of clear reddish orange inside of there, and that looks really nice, I think, with the visor piece above that. You can get the head to kind of go side to side a little bit. The fact that there's two ball joints there does mean that it's going to be restricted a little bit more than on the old kits. You have a peg here that allows it to go back and forth the shoulder. You can get it to rotate 360 at the ball joint here, and obviously wiggle around no problem. The shoulders can wobble back and forth and can actually kind of swing out if you want them to. The arms are constructed in the same way as the old bend mechanism inside the rubber piece there, which is really cool, gives it a nice sort of fleshy look to it. And then obviously the wrists you can rotate around just fine there at the end of the arm, although this piece of sort of rubber here on the back does sort of naturally prevent it from going too much further. So if you want it to go 360 it's possible, it's just not as natural of a rotation there as on some of the other model kits. The torso you can get to bend forward about that far, bend backward only about that far. This piece comes up a little bit higher on the chest than with some of the other kits, so if you want it to go all sorts of crazy directions there with this slinky body, not really going to happen so much, but you can get the torso to go side to side like that, and you can get some decent rotation still out of it. The thing about this piece being up here, though, is it does seem to keep it together better than on something like the Eva Unit 1, where I mentioned that the torso joints are just a little too loose and it tends to pop off at the center there. I haven't noticed that so much with this kit, which is great, because with being on the stand there, it actually connects here in the back where the normal cable would plug into, and so it's nice that it holds on just fine there. As for the legs, you can get them to go up pretty high. I mean, you can get them to go up higher if you want for some crazy stomping action or whatever. You can get them to go back just fine, up and around. You can kick himself in the head with his heel if he wants to. Get a nice 180 bend there at the knee, and this knee piece here does sort of move up to go flush with the rest of the leg there, give it a more natural look. Get the ankles to go back and forth, goes forward quite a bit actually. This little ankle guard does wobble around a little bit, but not too much. If you give it a little too much pressure, it will pop off. It's just a simple ball joint held on to that piece. And then obviously the toe can go back and forth. There is a very simple piece of PVC there, though, so it does tend to pop off sometimes. It's easy enough to get back into place, but like with all the other Eva kits, the toe there is pretty loose. And then you can get some rotation out of the foot back and forth, although it can't go too much further because of the little guards there down on the side of the leg. You do also get a little bit of a wiggle here down on the lower torso at the hips, and so if you wanted his stance to have like one leg push forward more or back further, you can do that. And of course you just saw the hand just exploded again for no particular reason. As with many of the other Eva kits, you do have the entry plug mechanism here on the back, and you can flip that little piece up, pull up back here on the back part, and the gears will push the entry plug up and out there. I'm not going to try digging it out too much, but you can see there's a separate gray piece in there for the entry plug. Not too much detail on it, it's just a single gray stick that you can put in there. You can paint it if you want to. It has like all the markings on where the white and the red would be, but it still is a little nice inclusion there, and you know, keeps with a lot of the other Eva kits. And then you also have a hole there, which is where the glowing halo piece is going to attach, much like with the Eva Unit 1 Awakening version. Now, as with basically every other Eva kit, you do get a nice variety of hands. I didn't bother taking them off the tree simply because when I got this kit, I pretty much knew right out of the box what sort of pose I was going to put it into, and the hands here seem to be pretty much the same as what you get with Eva Unit 1, the Awakening version. It might be the same as the standard Eva Unit 1 from 2.0, I don't know as much about what comes in that kit, but you do have sort of the open, fierce grabbing hands there. You have a closed trigger finger hand there. which doesn't really serve any purpose on this kit in particular because there's no rifle with it. But then you also get sort of a relaxed palm hand there as well. You get stickers for the knuckle pieces, which I've used some of for the the thumb on the hands that I have, and then there's the little smaller ones for the knuckles. I showed in part 1 kind of where some of the stickers were, but here's a look at the foil sheet with all of them removed, as you can get an idea of how many there are on this kit. It's not a ton, but it's a decent number of stickers, and they all apply pretty well. There's very few wraparound ones like you had on the old kits, which is always appreciated because those sometimes didn't stay as well as some of the newer kits. You also get some attachment pieces here. I mentioned in the first part that there were these clear gray, kind of smoky gray pieces for attaching the lance to Eva Unit 1 if you want it piercing through that, and so these are the pieces that you get for that, as well as connections for the stand there. And then you also get a connector for a standard Gundam style action base here, which is pretty much the same thing as is already on there, just slightly different to accommodate for the proportions of the Eva Unit instead of a Gundam. As for the action base itself, it does come in this sort of smoky gray color. You have a round base there, which is kind of nice, and you have the typical extension here. It doesn't go up real high, but it does get a little bit of height off the ground, so his feet won't touch if it's at the highest setting there. You get a little joint here to bend back and forth, and then the bit that connects into the back of the Eva Unit is right there. You have basically the one big hole, one big little socket there, the two smaller ones on top, and then this little ridge that kind of nestles into the back there. And then you can rotate here and here, but I think it just looks the best when it's all flush with the action base there. Here's the halo, which I mentioned earlier in the video. It's sort of the same clear pinkish gold color that you get on the Eva Unit 1 Awakening version, and the mold is the exact same as far as I can tell. So you get the same sort of stick here that just plugs into the back. This thing comes in the package about twice as long as what it is here, and just sort of suggests that you cut it about halfway, which is exactly what I did. Put a little bend in there so it'll be above his head nice enough, but not too high that it just looks silly. And then, of course, you have the lance, which is basically the only weapon that comes with this kit. You have a nice contrast, I think, between the shiny emerald gem here on either side with the bright red color that runs all the way through this thing. And I only did a little bit of panel lining here on those ridges and right there. There is a connection point here at the middle, which is really just a very simple interconnecting bit there, and it looked like it was going to be really loose when I first built this thing, but it's held up pretty well, and basically just separate those parts, slide it into the hand, and connect them again, and he holds it up just fine. There's really no weight to this thing, so it's not going to drag his arm down. And once you have Eva Unit 6 up on the stand, I think it looks really cool. Obviously the glow there is a little bit more exaggerated from my light off in the corner of my room there, but I think it looks really nice, the brightness of the halo above this more dark color tone of the Eva Unit 6 itself, and the lance I think just looks really cool as the sort of the sleek design of it in his hand there, and sort of the sleeker design of these new Evas overall. The one thing I do wish they had done with that peg on the back is made it a little bit deeper, because the problem is that while it holds just fine when it's on your shelf and you walk past it or move it as a whole thing or whatever, if you try to put Eva Unit 6 on the stand and then attach his accessories, it has a tendency to come loose. And it's not like he's just suddenly going to fall over. If you've got a decent hold on him in the stand, you'll be okay. It's not going to go toppling down on your floor or whatever, but it is kind of annoying when you're trying to put this on the top and that in his hand and get that thing to stay in there, because once you start putting pressure from one direction, it kind of pulls it from the other. And so if that peg was just a little bit deeper, or that, I don't know, maybe that ridge was another socket that held into his back, I think it would have worked just fine, because really there's nothing much you can do with his torso once he's on this stand already. That ridge pushes into his back enough that it's going to remain sort of a static pose for his torso. So I kind of wish they had just gone ahead and made it so there was another attachment along the spine that would have held it in place better. But that said, I do think this is a pretty solid kit overall. I really like the way that it looks. I like the accessories that it comes with. They're not real extravagant, but then most of the movie film accessories haven't been that super exciting. Obviously, Eva Unit 1 Awakening version, you got that gold arm, and that looks really cool, but it's not that super complicated. The only other one that I can think of that comes with a lot of accessories is the Eva Unit 2, which has the rocket boosters on the shoulders and the crossbow sort of weapon. So if you're looking for something that offers a lot in terms of the poseability and the accessories and all that, you're not going to find that here so much, but I do think in terms of sort of a display piece, this one looks really cool. I think this and Eva Unit 5 are my two favorites to just display on my shelf because of how sort of different they look from everything else in my collection. I mentioned the colors work really well for this, but I think also sort of the way that this Eva is built, the way it's sculpted, the fact that you have like these little points on the back of the head there, the double horn, and the shoulders being a little bit more curved and sleek there, as well as the general sleek look of these new movie kits overall, does really well for this particular kit. That said, if you were looking for something that is going to look really cool on the ground, you're not going to find that so much here. And I'm glad that they included the action base so that you didn't have to go track one down just to make this guy look halfway decent in your collection. I definitely recommend it, but obviously if you're looking for something that's more of an action-oriented pose kit, something that's more exciting in the sense that it's recreating stuff from the film other than this one pose of him coming down from the moon, you might want to look at another kit. But in terms of the build being solid, it's really great. Obviously, these newer kits didn't change up a whole lot from the old Eva kits, but they did just enough that I think it's a more solid build. It holds together better than the Eva Unit 1 Awakening version does, so that's great. And I think just overall, these are a fun build that's moderately challenging, but not super hard. It's kind of somewhere in between like the high grade and master grades for the Gundam lines for these Eva kits, and it's a little bit harder than the high grades because you have those inner mechanisms for the back piece and the arms and all that. But it's not nearly as involved as a master grade. So I also appreciate the fact that the build didn't take me forever to get this guy done. So that's another plus for this thing. But yeah, I definitely recommend this kit if you are into the Eva kits and are especially into the new movie line of Eva kits, because I think it just looks really cool on the shelf. So that's pretty much it for this review, and with that, I will see you guys next time.